We will deal with the next chapter in modern history, that is the administrative structures, policies and impact of the British rule. In that in particular, we will deal with the administrative structures, the Misrule of East India Company, the Regulating Act of 1773, the Pitt's India Act of 1784, and we shall discuss a brief note of Lord Cornwallis and his contribution to the police administration. We will first of all start with the administrative structure. Initially, there were three presidencies that were established, that of Bengal, Bombay, Madras. Post 1835, a new presidency called the Northwest was set up. It was separated from Bengal and it was west of Bihar. Now we shall deal with the misrule of the East India Company. It was seen that the British officials indulged in plundering Bengal, and in doing so they paid scant respect to the local customs, traditions and sentiments. They built up huge personal fortunes. They exploited the peasants, zamindars initially. Later on, the zamindars became their friends. The local traders and artisans, they all were exploited alike. They lived a luxurious post-retirement life in Britain. They were called the nabobs. Now these nabobs were basically an imitation of the Indian aristocracy which the retired British officials mimicked at Britain. The 1770-71 Bengal famine, which displayed the maladministration of the company, resulting in the death of nearly one-third of Bengal population. This summarizes the misrule of East India Company. Now we shall look into the Regulating Act of 1773. Before we get into the features, let's talk about the background for its introduction. The chaotic situation which existed in Bengal prompted the British government to inquire into the malpractices of East India Company. Precisely at this time, East India Company had applied for a £1 million loan, for which the government decided that it should regulate the East India Company. It passed the Regulating Act, and the East India Company was to lay down its civil, revenue and military related documents for scrutiny. This marked the first direct British government interference in Indian affairs. Now we shall look into the features of the Regulating Act. The president of the Calcutta factory, who was known as the Governor of Bengal, was made the Governor General of India. He was assisted by a council consisting of 4 members. A Supreme Court was created at Calcutta. However, it had some jurisdictional problems with the council. It also had some relational problems with the council. The council members constantly quarreled with the Governor General of India. The Supreme Court also had some legal problems, like there was a confusion as to which law to follow, whether it is the English law or the local traditional law which was existent in India during those days. In this confusion, it led to the pronounced the death of one Mr. Nand Kumar, who was an ex-Diwan of Murshidabad. He was given death sentence for forgery under the English law. However, this was not taken well by the Indians, as forgery was not a major offense under the existing traditional law. The officials, on returning back after their tenure in India serving as civil servants, had to file returns of their properties, how it was acquired and where it was situated. All these features were incorporated in the Regulating Act. Then in 1784, the Pitt's India Act was passed. The features are as under. It was basically named after William Pitt, then British Prime Minister. It established a board of directors. These directors control the East India Company's civil, revenue and military affairs. The East India Company however, retained the power of appointing and removing its officials or the civil servants. There was seen a dual set of governments, that is, one run by the East India Company and the other by the British government. The Governor General under the Pitt's India Act was all powerful. He could overrule his council. He was made the commander in chief of all British troops. The troops included the East India Companies and the British governments. He was the real ruler who was answerable only to the British Parliament. He exercised his powers through the judiciary, the police, the army, and the civil servants. This act also forbade the policy of conquest which was followed by the Britain or the English people. We shall talk of the contribution of Lord Cornwallis towards the police setup. In 1791 he established, or rather he created the post of the Superintendent of Police for Calcutta. He established a police structure. The SP was made in charge of Calcutta, the kotwals of other cities outside Calcutta, the darogas were made in charge of the district thanas, and the chowkidar was in charge of the village. Rather, he was called the village policeman.